What are the tastiest low carbohydrate vegetables we as diabetics can really enjoy? Ones that not only keep our blood sugars low and controlled, but also provide the greatest amounts of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Is there a difference between vegetables that are grown above the ground versus those grown below ground? As you will find out today, one of these groups will undoubtedly set you up for worsening diabetes and failure. The great news, you will be provided with a stunning list of vegetables that you've never thought of as go-to options that will change your health for the better. Welcome to the Resilient Diabetic. This is the channel we turn ordinary, struggling diabetics into extraordinary, well-controlled diabetics. If you are brand new to this channel, I welcome you. My name is Jay Sampat. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that gray notification bell. That way you will be alerted when new life-changing episodes have been published. And if you've learned something new today, please always smash that like button for me. As with all my videos, this should not be considered personal medical advice. This is my interpretation of the latest research. If you want medical advice, please always consult your physician. To really understand why 52% of the population is now diabetic and metabolically sick, we have to rewind a little bit and discuss some basic human physiology. The human body contains approximately 5 liters of blood. I want to round up a bit because I want you to imagine 3 of those gigantic 2-liter bottles of soda as a reference. Now, circulating throughout the entire 5 liters of blood, there are approximately only 4 grams of sugar. To help put that into perspective, 4 grams is less than a teaspoon worth. A healthy body requires and wants at all times, let me repeat that very important point, it wants at all times to have less than a teaspoon of sugar at any given moment floating throughout that entire 5 liters of blood. 1 teaspoon equates to approximately 100 milligrams a deciliter on your glucose meter. 1 serving of rice, around 150 grams, once absorbed, will put 10 teaspoons of sugar into your blood. 1 quote-unquote healthy sweet baked potato that your dietitian said was a diabetic superfood will dump 8 to 9 teaspoons of sugar in your bloodstream. That slice of whole grain barley bread has 6 to 7 teaspoons of sugar. Even that healthy banana, once broken down and absorbed, will equate to 5 to 7 teaspoons of sugar. What does the body require at any given time? 1 teaspoon of sugar. When glucose remains constantly over this threshold, metabolic diseases begin. Diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, dementia. And what do they all have in common? They are all directly caused by our diets and the amounts of sugar and, more importantly, insulin floating in our bloodstream. In the episode, The Most Important Nutrient for Diabetics, which I will happily put in the description box below if you missed that episode, we discussed the most critical attribute to our health. It's based on the protein leverage hypothesis and its importance to satiety if you like. Stated most simply, and due to the evolution of our species, the protein leverage hypothesis predicts we humans will always prioritize protein first when regulating total food intake. In plain English, we are continually driven to consume more and more food until we meet our minimum protein or amino acid needs for the day. The real world implications is that if we don't consume adequate protein, we will overconsume other foods high in carbohydrates and fats in a subconscious effort to obtain those critical missing amino acids to survive. Thus, not only do we gain weight, but blood sugars remain over that single teaspoon threshold. That is when we start to become metabolically diseased. As we've discussed in a prior episode and discussed in detail, the macronutrient that gets ignored the most, yet has the most powerful effects on satiety or feeling full and satisfied after a meal, is protein. Second to protein are foods high in fiber. They also cause the greatest feeling of satisfaction. We also talked about one of the required physiological processes for satiety to occur. That is the stretching of the stomach. Besides protein, the right fiber-based foods are the key. And which fiber-based foods? Only those that are low in carbohydrates but extremely high in the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and the antioxidants we really need. The very best types of vegetables for us diabetics are both nutrient dense and low in carbohydrates. What does nutrient dense mean? Foods that are nutrient dense are very high in the nutrients that the body requires on a daily basis, but are naturally low in calories. Because all wheat-based products and most fruits are extremely high in sugars and or glucose, they're just simply excluded from our list. You may have noticed and heard the term net carbs, especially amongst our nutrition-obsessed friends. This entails subtracting the grams of fiber from the total carbohydrate grams of any food. Our current devious food manufacturers have taken the liberties with this concept to tout heavily processed bars and snack foods with low net carb values. This calculation is misleading and highly manipulated, so much so that I recommend you using net carb calculations for high fiber vegetables only. You must count gross values or total carbs and sugars when it comes to other foods that come in a wrapper, a box, or a bag. The very first thing we must do in order to find out if a vegetable is diabetic friendly or not is to find out where that vegetable is coming from. But no, not the country or the region it's coming from, but rather surprisingly, where it grows. Does it grow above the ground or under the ground? A rule of thumb to follow. If a vegetable grows above the ground, like lettuce, spinach, or bell peppers, for example, it probably contains low enough carbs to be diabetic friendly. If a vegetable grows below the ground, like carrots, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and turnips, you will need to double check that carb count. Veggies that grow below ground are known as tubers and are high starch, which means they are high carb-based vegetables. Before we get into our list, it does help to understand what starch is. Starch is a chemical compound, a type of carbohydrate that is essentially made of long strands of glucose or sugars all bonded together. Once eaten, the body begins to break apart those bonds that begins actually in the mouth, releasing all of that sugar into the bloodstream. Those starches are technically defined as complex carbohydrates, meaning we are supposed to break them down slower than simple sugars. But there's a problem. If you are diabetic with a simple glucose meter or a continuous glucose meter like me, then you will notice, and I mean notice immediately, that they still raise our blood sugars just the same as any other sugar-based food. The ugly reality, those below ground vegetables will raise your blood sugars to critical, dangerous levels just like any other candy bar, sugary soda, or even sadly any processed packaged junk food. The very best vegetables for us diabetics on our above ground list to consume would first and foremost be your dark leafy greens. When it comes to being low carb and nutrient dense, leafy vegetables have the fewest carbohydrates and the lowest impact on blood sugars. Since they also have a high water content, adding them to your meals also provides volume and bulk, stretching out that stomach. The carbs they do have are mostly fiber, which digests slowly and keeps you full for longer. The list, as many of you would already know, include spinach, kale, collard greens, romaine, and basically the lettuce family too. Let's use kale as our example of a nutrient-dense veggie. There are 3.8 grams of fiber in 100 grams of kale and only 6 grams of carbs. 1 cup of kale provides you with over 200% of your daily vitamin A and 134% of your daily vitamin C. Next are our cruciferous low-carb veggies. Cruciferous vegetables are those of the cabbage family and are a fantastic choice since they are also high in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants while maintaining a very low carb count. They are also high in vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, and are incredibly anti-inflammatory. And if you noticed, some overlap with the dark leafy greens known as the cruciferous leafy greens. Those would include kale, mustard greens, collard greens, cabbage, and of course broccoli. Other options would include radishes, Swiss chard, zucchini, cauliflower, green cabbage, white cabbage, cucumbers, turnips, and of course Brussels sprouts. We are all pretty familiar with that well-known list, and they are available at grocery stores pretty much year-round. But now we can get into other interesting veggies. 3, as a matter of fact, that you may have never thought of as low-carb and good for you. I want you to experiment with these. Our glucose meters never lie. So when you do introduce a new vegetable, you've always got to test. My rule of thumb, I like flat glucose readings all day. No spikes and no corrections. Not only will you have to play with the different types, but most importantly, the amounts. You can use as much spices and seasonings as you like when it comes to cooking these vegetables. Because remember, spices and seasonings do not raise blood sugars. First on our to try list are mushrooms. Technically speaking, mushrooms are not vegetables. However, in culinary terms, they are viewed as such. Mushrooms are incredibly low in carbohydrates. 1 cup of raw white mushrooms contains 15 calories, just 2 grams of carbs, one of which is fiber. 1 portobello, also sometimes known as a portabella, contains 3 grams of total carbs, 2.2 grams of net carbs. Next is the eggplant. Eggplants belong to the nightshade family of vegetables, which also includes tomatoes and bell peppers. They grow in a manner similar to that of tomatoes, above the ground, hanging from vines of a plant that grows several feet in height. The glossy, purple teardrop eggplant may be the one you already know, but this versatile vegetable comes in a variety of shapes and colors. If you dig a little deeper at your local farmer's market, you're likely to find oval, long, slim, and melon-shaped eggplants with white, green, pink, orange, and even striped skin. With a wide variety of eggplants to choose from, it's no secret they could be a perfect addition to just about any meal. Interestingly enough, eggplants do have similar textures to tomatoes, making them perfect for soups, stews, and many of you probably already know, for barbecuing. It has around 2.5 grams of fiber per 1 cup serving, and that serving of cooked eggplant has around 6.2 grams of net carbs and around 35 calories. On to one I bet you haven't tried yet. Bok choy. And when you do, because it's now available just about everywhere, it will be a household favorite. And if you don't know, bok choy is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables known to man. Though it's closely related to the headed cabbage, bok choy looks like a celery lettuce hybrid. The beauty? The entire plant is edible, from its thick clustered stalks to its dark leafy greens. Along with being crunchy and delicious, bok choy is chock full of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and other nutrients that make it a beneficial addition to your diet. 1 cup of raw bok choy weighing 70 grams contains only 9 calories and approximately 1.5 grams of carbohydrates. How do we put this all together for an actionable plan? First, your diet starts and ends with a good source of protein at every meal. Your above ground vegetables are then built around that. The end result of prioritizing a lean protein source along with the right mix of low carb veggies are blood sugars that are not only low and extremely well controlled, but a functioning system that will require very little insulin, which means low inflammatory levels. A body with low insulin and controlled sugars is a body that can now reverse all health complications and begin to heal itself as designed. Body fat will continue to melt off. Muscle mass will continue to be retained or even built if weight training is concurrently executed. But most importantly for you, you get your life back and refocused on other missions outside of being obsessed over being diabetic and the consequences of food. I bet you would love to learn more on this subject. So I'll create 2 links for you. The first link you will see will be to subscribe to this all-important life-changing channel. The second is the link to the playlist on diabetic weight and fat loss episodes. So have a great and productive day, and we will see you soon with another new episode, which are generally released weekly. Bye for now.